Okay, let me just check a couple of things and make sure that this is going. Hey, Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take just a moment. All right, we're live there. Let me make sure that we are live here on this page. We are live. Okay. So I'll pause that. Pause that. Give me 1 second, guys. Make sure that we are clear here. We are only on YouTube and over at uartsy/p/live. All right, I'm going to start this broadcast.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, and let's get this thing going, and I want to undock, and I want to maximize in full screen. Oops. And now, how do I get rid of go to webinar? I'm going to tuck it down into the corner. There you go. All right, so one more check-in, and then I think we are ready to go. So give me a chat and shout. There goes my brain. Give me a shout in chat. Can you hear me? Can you see Mariano's screen? Okay. So what we're doing today, we're having a conversation with Mariano Steiner, and we're talking about, number one, his work, number two, his class over at UArtsy, which is imaginative sculpting. And you can head over to UArtsy and get a free lesson from Mariano where he's going to talk about anatomy and some of those other things. And then today we just wanted to give you kind of a preview. You know, what can you do if you really open yourself up to this, if you learn some of the tools, some of the processes, and how can you grow in your work? Mariano, for me, is one of the most, gosh, I think, Mariano, why don't we, do you have a browser open? It'd be great to look at your ArtStation.
Yeah, sure. 1 second. ArtStation. There you go.
Yeah. So this is where you find Mariano. And his work has really blazed a trail for me in 3D because of the, you know, the emotion, the imagination. The thing that really caught my eye, and what I want to make sure that you guys are aware of, is the chimpanzees, the one in the second row.
Yeah, this one?
Yeah. Chimp fight. Right. Man. And as I told you last time we had a webinar, when I saw that, I was, I'm not ashamed to admit it, I was jealous, like crazy jealous.
Thanks.
I
that
love
was
this.
a fun one to work on.
Yeah. All right. So why don't we start? You tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure. So, well, I'm a character artist working for a couple of different areas, actually. I do a lot of stuff for cinematics, toys, also advertising, and I used to teach digital sculpting back in Brazil. And, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, cool. Your audio comes in and out. Are you moving close and far from the mic?
No, actually not.
All right, we'll just let it play.
If it happens again, just let me know. I'll switch to the camera audio.
Okay, great. All right. So character art. What does that mean? What does that mean? Because I know there's a lot of variety there, but can you explain a little bit more what that is for you?
Well, to me, basically, is working on characters and creatures.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the time, the client just comes to me with a concept or an idea.
Yeah.
And I just kind of execute them in 3D. So I pretty much translate the 2D concept to a full 3D asset where you can use for toys, for 3D printing, for cinematics, animation, and also do textures, do a lot of hair. Sometimes I also work with blank shapes. So it's kind of the whole the whole process of translating the 2D concept to a full 3D asset.
Great. And do you do any of the concept?
Not much. I would love to, but I don't do much. I think like I don't have a lot of concept stuff on my portfolio,
Hmm.
so the clients don't really look for me to do concepts.
Great. And you're freelance, right?
Yeah, yeah. Right now I'm a freelancer.
How long you been doing that?
Um, this time it's been like a year now, but I
Hmm.
was freelancing for 3 years in Brazil before I came here to Canada.
Hmm.
So 4 years of freelancing.
Wow. What do you like about freelancing as opposed to working in a studio?
Um, I think there's a lot of pros and cons, but for me, I think flexibility is the best thing about being a freelancer. You really can do your time. You can work a lot one day and don't work at all and the next day. You have a really flexible schedule, uh, and that's for me. It's the best thing of being a freelancer. You can balance a lot with personal life, so you can take time to be with your family, and then when they go to sleep, you work more or something like that. So it's very flexible.
Cool. All right. So walk me through this figure, the
What
substance
figure?
one.
The substance one.
Yeah.
So yeah, this one is my final project to our class.
Uh huh.
It's something that I got the inspiration from a concert I went a couple months ago, a concert of a band called Wardruna. It's basically a Viking Norse band, and they do the Vikings TV show soundtrack. And their concert was just amazing, super visual and audio trip. It was really incredible. And I saw one of the guys playing this instrument here, the lyre,
Hmm.
and that image just stuck with me. So I was really inspired to do something like that at the time. Really need to go home and sculpt something about this. And then the idea kind of started developing. I like to establish a sort of a conversation with my work. So I always start with something like a raw inspiration, like one idea that comes from whatever. It can come from nature, from a movie, from a cartoon, or anything really that inspires me at the time. And then I just let that idea kind of evolve. I add stuff, add value, try to add background stories, and add more characters. So that started to the whole thing started to happen after this guy.
Okay, so you start with that one guy.
Yeah, I started with this. Let me see if I can find him. Yeah, I started with this guy. So that's the first character I sculpted,
Yeah.
and then I was also looking a lot of some of the Frazetta work. So I wanted that feeling, the kind of the Frazetta feeling,
Mm-hmm.
where you have a lot of anatomy, not a lot of clothes. Um, I'm also really addicted to Christopher Charbonnel work.
Oh man, me too.
Yeah, that guy is just a huge inspiration right now for me. So I think part of the look development here it comes from him. And so I kind of put everything together, and I got this guy. And then I thought, okay, what the story I could bring to this piece?
Yeah.
And this instrument has a kind of a Viking history to it. Is like when Ragnarok is coming, someone will just play this instrument to warn everyone. So it's kind of a mythology story,
Hmm.
and I thought it would be cool to use that and sculpt some more elements on the scene. So I wanted to have this giant god figure behind this guy, and then the idea pretty much started to evolve by itself. I wanted to bring Thor here, kind of winning the match between him and this sea creature that is also on his mythology,
Hmm.
and a cool way to bring the two characters together. And then I came up with the idea of having this guy as a some sort of a fisherman, and then all of a sudden he sees this god guy coming and walking on the waters. So it's a whole crazy concept that just developed kind of by itself.
Hmm. Now, I didn't ask you in advance this, and I probably should have, but do you have these files in ZBrush? Do you think that's something we can start to open up and look
Yeah,
at?
absolutely.
Oh, wow, you're prepared. Great.
Yeah, I do have the final ZBrush one here.
Okay. Is green something you sculpt in?
No, no, it's just a color that I throw here.
Uh huh.
Just this material. This is a custom material I made,
Mm-hmm.
and it works like this is kind of a green default color. But if you mix with other colors, it gives you some cool results.
Yeah, I like
So I
that.
always like to sculpt with some color, using some kind of color.
Okay. All right. So, when you're starting these things out, now I know you put together a little bit of a demonstration or a free lesson people can grab over at UArtsy, but how do you
Mhm.
start? What's your starting process?
So it depends a lot. Like for personal work, I don't really have a recipe. I try to uh, dodge the recipes
Mm-hmm.
uh, and really discover new workflows every time I do something. So I don't have a recipe. With this one, I started with this guy using the mannequin.
Yeah.
So I started this with the mannequin, testing some poses, and then of course sculpting the anatomy, the facial expression, and then I created the instrument, and then as I said, it evolved from there. I started adding this, kind of doing this look development of the character, like adding subtools and accessories, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And then this guy is one lesson of the course, is one of the anatomy lessons, and then this guy will jump to the final project, and then we do everything in the last 2 weeks, I guess. We
Mm.
do all the rest.
So you recorded most of this process.
Yeah, yeah, everything is recorded.
Oh, great. Okay,
It's a
so
lot,
this is part
it's
of
a
the
lot
this is
of
the whole
content.
class. Okay. So there's no real starting point, but let's head over to ArtStation because I remember in our last conversation we were talking about your I forget the name of the piece, but it's the main piece
This
right
one?
there. Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
So this one didn't start out or exactly like this. What was the genesis of this?
Yeah, it was a similar process. Again, another concert. It was an inspiration from another concert.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a concert of a band that plays cello. They play heavy metal on cellos, and it's like super crazy. It calls Apocalyptica.
Oh yeah, I know
They're
them.
pretty famous.
Yep.
Yeah, and they play. They did a full concert playing Metallica songs, and it was super awesome. The lighting on the guys, the performance, it was everything was super inspiring. So I started with that. Like I wanted to sculpt a guy playing cello. And here on the bottom, you can see some of the process. So same thing. I started with the mannequin and started develop the anatomy and testing a bunch of different poses. Um, and then I don't know. I wasn't finding that too appealing. Just the cello.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to start adding some crazy elements to it. And I was traveling with my wife, and I saw something about an octopus. I'm not sure if it was a painting, or something in the gallery, but I had the idea of doing the tentacle, and maybe uh, making the guy playing the tentacle. And of course, my wife looked at me like, "What are you thinking? This is completely crazy, right?"
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but then I started to add elements and try to uh, ground that concept of the guy playing the tentacle. So I wanted to add the other character, the girl, the singer behind him, and then the idea just started to grow from there.
I love that. I love how open it is, and you can see you experiment with that arm and the movement
Yeah,
and getting some drama in there, and then that doesn't work.
yeah, yeah. I flipped the pose as well. He was looking to his left, and then I flipped to his right side.
Yeah.
I played a lot with the arms pose, with the legs pose, the torso twist also changed, and it was the same thing for the girl. I tested a lot of different poses and different angles.
Yeah.
It's basically it's what I said, is a conversation with the work. I love doing that. It makes the process so much more fun. And if you're not in a hurry of finishing it, it's just it's just stress free. You test it. If it doesn't look good, you change it, and you stop looking at it for a couple of days, and then you come back to it. You see a whole bunch of different uh, problems, and if you're not in a hurry, you just take your time and experiment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. Let's check your sound real quick. You said you can switch to a different mic
Yeah, yeah. I
because
can
it
try
comes in
here.
and out. I can stabilize
Yeah.
it later, but might be wiser to
Let me
stabilize.
know if that works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool, cool.
Yeah, I don't think this has the up and down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it. That's an approach that I really like doing, is like establishing this kind of a conversation with the work,
Mm-hmm.
and just let the idea go crazy.
Yeah.
And this is a quick video in Marmoset, which is a cool tool as well, because you can do these animations with the camera and with the lighting. So that's a really cool work to do, a really cool way to present your work.
Austin, you're saying audio live feed was lost? Give me a quick note, guys. It looks okay here, but give me a quick note. So how do you render these things?
Well, as I was saying, this one is Marmoset,
Yeah.
but basically the process is what I did for the class, is bringing this ZBrush sculpture, unwrapping UVs with UV Master, and then bringing everything to substance painting. And here I have a lot of flexibility with materials and textures. And we have the iRay here that is really, really powerful. So, of course, you can do in a bunch of different ways. You can bring this to KeyShot and do some cool stuff there, as well as I did on the chimp fight.
Yeah.
That was KeyShot. But in order to use substance and have all this flexibility with the textures, you have to unwrap the UVs, right? So that can be kind of a tedious process, but I think it's really worth it. And then, like, after you have all the UVs done and you have all the textures here, you can either render it in iRay here in Substance, or you can export the textures and render in V-Ray, Arnold, or whatever render you're comfortable with. So for this piece right here, it was it was textured in Substance, and then I exported the textures and rendered it in V-Ray.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you deal with the different material setups?
What do you mean?
Well, like you're previewing it in Substance,
Mm-hmm.
and I assume you get some element of the material there.
Yeah, actually, the preview on Substance is pretty accurate. So if you just export the textures using the preset here, like the V-Ray preset, it just gives you everything you need to build the shader. So you just plug the textures on the V-Ray shader, and it works basically one-to-one. So it's a really easy workflow. After you have the UVs unwrapped, it's a really easy workflow.
That's great. That's nice. So that's going to be one of the keys is make sure you export correctly.
Yeah, totally. Like you can play with a lot of the presets there. You can build your own presets. So it depends on what kind of maps you want, and you can bake like the masks if you want to bake this kind of mask.
Yep.
So you can have full control on like procedural shaders in Max or Maya. So it's it's easy, but it's complex. It's a complex workflow.
Yeah. Well, how do you get started in Substance?
Um,
When you do this, is it a matter of grabbing one of the basic materials?
uh, yeah, normally I get one of the materials here.
Yep.
You have the simple materials and the smart materials.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, when you bring something, it's basically like this.
Yep.
Here you can see some stains here, which are the ambient occlusion and curvature maps.
Yeah.
So I basically bring the OBJ here. I bake the ambient occlusion and curvature maps. So all the smart materials and the masks get this information to work. And then you just start playing with the materials. You can throw something like, I don't know, let's say a simple one. I think I used this Rusty. And you see that this is what it gives me right off the bat. So you can just play with colors, and you have a lot of other parameters here. And you can use, I think what I did is I used this other Rusty. Oops. This other Rust shader, and I just masked, like you do a black mask, and you can come here on the smart masks, and you have this really cool things that you can do, and it's almost automatic. It's a matter of just playing with the sliders. So you can just throw like one mask here, and it will calculate based on those two maps that you bake. So you see that it brings all the cool information from both materials. So it's pretty intuitive. And you can see the mask here. So if you come here, you can play with the balance. You can make it more contrasted. You can add textures. You can play with the curvature. You can put ambient occlusion. Oops, maybe crashed. Yeah, just give me a second. I think it's saving.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very intuitive once you get the hang of the software. It can be super complex, of course, but if you're doing this kind of I would say more of a fine art look, it can be really easy. I hope it doesn't crash.
Yeah, it takes a while to start that file.
Yeah, it's kind of heavy. But yeah, I'm using this workflow quite a lot lately, especially for personal work.
Yeah, I've actually started exploring this as well and creating kind of like a clay studio inside the Substance, which I just, man, it's crazy powerful.
Yeah, yeah. How do you like it?
Love it. And
Yeah,
iRay is
it's cool.
so powerful. Especially,
It,
I've been going in and doing tone mapping and post
hmm
effects, and it's quite powerful.
it is. It is. It's crazy. So you can see really clearly the mask here,
Hmm.
and you have a bunch of different masks that you can use, and it brings you different results. So it's a pretty cool way to do cool presentations.
Yep. Yeah, that's great. And then export directly to V-Ray. That's one of the things you do, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Well,
S-
it depends, right? Sometimes I just render here in iRay, and
Yeah.
that's it.
So what are you going to teach? How's this going to go about? What are we going to learn the first week? Do you know?
So it's going to be a lot of the course itself is going to be a lot of anatomy.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go through a lot of 2D exercises, drawing on top of photos, sculpting, and that kind of helps us understand what happens in the body, and makes us not only being able to copy volumes from a reference, but also improvise and adapt. You know, it's not always that you have a perfect reference for what you want. Sometimes you have to mix references to achieve a pose that you have in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have a solid understanding of anatomy, that can just go horrible, you know? So we're going to go heavy on that. And of course, that also allows us to exaggerate the forms
Mm-hmm.
and stylize. So it's really important for anyone that works as a character or a creature artist for pretty much any field of the CG industry. Well, I'm also going to show how I approach studying anatomy. So a lot of the methodology, the methods I used to get where I am.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say that I know anatomy, because I don't think you ever know anatomy. It's always something that you're improving and studying.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I'm also going to try to introduce a different way of thinking, where you kind of forget the restrictions of software, of render, of base mesh, and you can concentrate in finding forms no matter how you start. You can start from a sphere, from an arrow, or from a solid base mesh.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a different way of thinking where you really focus on the forms. And with the final project, I'm going to show how I developed the idea and how I established this kind of conversation with the work, and kind of how that allows us to have a much deeper meaning and expression to the work when we establish this kind of conversation.
Right.
So yeah, that's pretty much it. And on the first week that you mentioned, I guess, I'm not really sure. I think we're gonna do some exercises, trying to start this new way of thinking, like finding form from different starts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, it's something that is really important, and I think it's a great exercise to start sculpting from different starts. That kind of trains your eye to find the form, no matter how you start. And something that is really important is that we have to stop being lucky all the time. You really have to. You really need to have power over the sculpture you're doing. You can't be lucky, like, I can't erase this face because I'm not gonna get the result again.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. That's a
You got to be
awesome way
able
to say that.
yeah, you got to be able to start from whatever base mesh you have to start
Yeah.
and get a similar result, and not being lucky, like, oh, this time I got it perfect, but if I lose this file, I'm not going to be able to do it again.
Yeah.
So that's something that we have to stop right away. So that's the first week.
Okay. So talk to me about that, because I think that's quite fascinating. If we were to jump into ZBrush real quick, what does that look like? If do you start with a sphere? Do you start with a mannequin?
Yeah, I mean, during the course, we will start from different bases. So we do, at some point, we do a really symmetrical Z-sphere base mesh.
Mm-hmm.
Other times we go for the mannequin, and then we can do totally asymmetrical sculpting. And sometimes I just start from the primitives. So I do a lot of stuff like starting from a sphere, or this arrow is something that is quite unusual. Okay. And I love starting something from this. And let me see if I can find something here from the first week.
I kind of want to see that.
Yeah, so this is something that I started from the arrow. So we went from this to this. So, and also with no symmetry. So that really forces your brain to understand the shapes and find the shapes in any angle. Mm-hmm. And forces you to find the symmetry by yourself and not rely on the software. So that really kind of develops a trust. You start to trust your eyes and your instincts much more when you do this kind of exercise.
That's great. And that's within the first week?
Yeah, that's the first week. And this is the same exercise, started from a sphere. Mm-hmm. So let me be a little more clear here. So this is from the sphere, and this is from the arrow, right? So it's just a quick blocking, just to show how to get similar results starting from different bases. Mm-hmm. It's that thing of not being so lucky anymore and really understand what you're doing. And then I just get one of those and go a little further and end up with this. It's very simple. It's just a sketch, but it's what I'm saying. It's an exercise. So you don't have to go like super crazy in detail. It's a matter of having the information with the least amount of geometry as possible.
Got it. That's pretty awesome. So what does week 2 look like? Because week 1 sounds kind of awesome.
Yeah, week 2, week 2 we start the anatomy exercises. So okay. Then for the first week, I think we have that preview lesson you posted.
Yep.
So that's from the week 1, where we kind of block Z-sphere base mesh and do a whole body blocking, just so we can understand a little better the whole connection between all the body parts, and basically establishing a starting point from the class. So the students will be able to see this as a comparison point, to compare after we finish all the specific studies. Mm. So let me open up the file here. So this is what we have for the second week. So again, it's a low res blocking, but you can see pretty much everything is there except for the face. But you also have the basic volumes here. It's just a matter of keep refining it.
Yeah. So
for this first week, all I want to show the students is how to get to this result and see the proportions working like everything working together. And then we start the specific exercise, like doing arms and doing legs, doing the torso, face, feet, and hands, and then we jump to I think week 7 is where we finish all the specific studies, and we start sculpting from the mannequin with no symmetry. So it kind of builds up, you know. You start with this symmetrical base, studying the anatomy as a whole, and then you go to specific studies, and then you put a little more difficulty to it. So you start from the mannequin with no symmetry, so that forces you to find the forms and keep the body parts. How can I say? They have to relate to each other, right? You can't have like a super strong arm in one side and a weak arm on the other side. Everything has to come together as one single figure. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the difficulties of doing stuff with no symmetry. And then we start sculpting the lure player from the final project. Yeah. So this guy. And it's almost symmetrical in some parts, but I started from the mannequin with no symmetry at all. So you can kind of see how this arm belongs to the same person as this arm, you know what I'm saying? And then we add all those details. We add the expression, not only for the face, but for the hands and feet. And then we start this guy for the final project and all that comes with it.
Man, okay. So this is going to be super intense, almost like an atelier type class with tons of projects, exactly. Things people need to be submitting and doing. And
mm-hmm. There's a lot of hours of content.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm very happy with the content, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think it's coming out really solid.
Great. That's awesome. So the focus is anatomy, but the purpose of learning anatomy isn't to just create a bunch of T-pose, but to help open you up, develop the freedom to kind of create.
Exactly. I think anatomy is a tool. I see anatomy as a tool for us to kind of free our imagination.
Yeah.
So you can really, like, if you only do cartoon stuff, you're not going to be able to do a realistic body. Yeah. But if you do a realistic body, you're probably going to be able to do a cartoon character, you know?
Yeah.
So I think everything is based on anatomy. Even if it's not human, it can be a creature or even an object, like anatomy of things, you know?
That's great. Joshua was just asking, will each week be a mix of pre-recorded and live? And it is a mix. So it's pre-recorded and then there's one live kind of Q&A.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. Yeah.
So every week we're going to release the videos, and then on the live session, it's a Q&A. I can show you some more stuff and ask questions and all that.
Get reviews of work.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what do you think, excuse me, what do you think is really important for, let's say somebody wants to be a character artist and they want to take this class. What do you think is really important for somebody who's a character artist to get out of this?
I think anatomy, as we were saying, is the first big thing.
Yep.
I think you can't really be a character artist or a creature artist without a very solid knowledge of anatomy, at least not anymore. You could get away with that like 15 years ago, where the characters were just a bunch of triangles, but not anymore. We really have to understand what happens in the body. So anatomy is a big one. And I think it's in a personal level, as a character artist, I always like to give my work a part of me. You know, people when people look at my work, they see that I did that. So it's kind of finding your own voice as an artist and applying that to your work and pay attention to story, background story. You not always have to like need to have a complex sculpture like this to have a background story. You can have a T-pose character for production where you look at the character and you see where that character is from or what happened with that character, what kind of environment is the character in. So I think that kind of bringing a background story to your work is something that you probably gonna maybe, I'm not sure if learn, but understand more after this course.
Cool. All right, so those of you who are watching over at uartsy.com, I'm going to say goodbye to you guys here in just a second. And then those of you who are on the GoToWebinar here, stay on, and we'll get a little bit more questions asked for you guys. And Mariano, can you just head over to uartsy.com so people know where to find you, find the course?
Yep. Give me 1 second. So here you have uartsy.com.
Yep.
We have
Free
those 2 lessons. That model is awesome, by the way.
Thank you.
Really cool stuff.
Yeah, thanks. That was fun. I haven't gotten in, and each morning I've been actually sculpting now. You inspired me.
That's awesome. And this one and the other one with the bow. Yeah, that was awesome.
That's great. I just got the quote back from I don't know if it's a foundry or whatnot, but it's about $6,000 to print that thing at about 4 feet.
Yeah.
And then it was really cheap to just CNC mill it in foam. So I'm hoping to get it here into the studio.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah, I was talking to a foundry about printing this one as well. Mm-hmm. It would be around, I think, $4,000, but for a print like 60 centimeters.
60 centimeters.
It's not much. Yeah, I'm not sure how. Like,
let me connect you with my guys. They do voxel printing, which is significantly cheaper than the small SLA type stuff, or SLS.
That would be great.
Yeah, that'd be awesome to see this. Like 4 feet tall.
Yeah. I even did a quick look to the foundry.
Nice.
I sent them this.
Yeah.
As a goal.
Yep.
So this is like close to a final result. It would be pretty cool to have one of those.
That it would. Yeah, I will connect you with the guys over in Portland here. So
cool.
uArtsy, you can see his class right there. Imaginative sculpting. It's open, guys. Starts the 25th. Not too far from now, so make sure you get in there. You've seen a bit of what it's all about. So I'm going to sign out to those of you guys who are watching this on YouTube, and we're going to hang out with the guys that are over on GoToWebinar.
Cool.
So have a good one, guys. Stopping.